Okay, we have started. On behalf of Elephant Artist Relief Society, also known as EAR, and the EAR leadership team, I'd like to officially welcome you all to tonight's Umbrella Talk. My name is Marianne Elder. I am the administrative manager for EAR, and I'm on the programming committee. Tonight's Umbrella Talk, we welcome Doug Levitt, who is going to talk to us about artist skills, artist statements, CVs, portfolios, and more. But first, I'd like to throw this over to Jill Armstrong, board of directors with EAR, to talk about the land acknowledgement.
Thanks very much, Marianne. In the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, by honoring and acknowledging Mohkinstsis and the traditional Treaty 7 territory and oral practices of the Blackfoot Confederacy, including the Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, as well as the Ayasi, Nakota, and Tsuut'ina nations. EAR acknowledges that this territory is also cherished by the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We celebrate all nations, Indigenous and non, who honor this land. We're grateful to engage in an honest and eager process of reconciliation. We are all treaty people.
Thank you so much for that, Jill. So tonight's event is part of EAR's ongoing series called Umbrella Talks, which offer presentations for artists of all disciplines. And this year, EAR's Umbrella Talks are supported by the Rosa Foundation. And first, I'd like to tell everyone a little bit about EAR in case you're new to us. Elephant Artist Relief Society is a registered charity that provides practical resources to artists of all disciplines in Calgary and surrounding areas to help sustain their well-being and livelihood. This year, EAR celebrates 17 years of service to the arts community. EAR provides emergency financial relief funding to artists who are experiencing a medical or financial crisis, professional development workshops such as this one, a twice-monthly online artist meetup group on Facebook called Studio E, a wide variety of community resource information on Facebook and our website, and access to group health insurance benefits. As a charitable organization, we rely on grants, but also very much largely on donors, memberships, and our fundraising, which is what we do a lot of. You can help us by raising awareness about EAR, and if you can, consider becoming a member or donating online. 100% of every donation is allocated to providing emergency relief for artists in times of need. So there's just a last bits of housekeeping. Throughout the presentation, we ask that you keep your mics on mute and your video off so there's minimal background interference. And please feel free to use the chat function to write your questions as they come up, and we will answer them in the question and answer portion of the evening. There'll be a brief 5-minute break before question and answer this evening. When we get there, we will drop a link in the chat to a feedback form for you to fill out. That's where we really want your feedback as to, what you think we're doing right, other topics you might be interested in seeing us cover, and that feedback actually will shape our programming for next year. So it's really important to get your feedback. During the question and answer portion, we'll address as many of your questions as we can until we end tonight at 9 p.m. Now, I would like to speak about our presenter tonight, Mr. Doug Levitt. Doug Levitt is an artist specializing in Alla Prima painting techniques. His main theme has been historical native cowboy themes, but he also paints contemporary portraits, landscapes, still life, and anything else that catches his eye. His other passion is teaching. He says, it's a sacred thing to be asked to help someone along in their passion, and the need to take it seriously is crucial. Doug feels artists have a responsibility to be cultural ambassadors in our society, and teaching others to grow in their creativity is a main avenue to accomplish that goal for him. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Doug Levitt.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me for this talk. I'm very honored to be here. I'm really enjoying what EAR stands for and what it's accomplishing. So being able to contribute to that is very nice for me. I try to make everything as practical and real life as I can in my talk. So definitely feel free to list your questions, and I'd love to interact with you more in the Q&A time for sure. So one of the first things that I wanted to talk about before we get into the nuts and bolts of artist statements and CVs and portfolios and approaching galleries and things like that is establishing who you are as an artist, which is a profoundly overlooked step in almost every artist development that I've ever encountered. The norm is for us to have an interest in art and then pursuing a teacher or going to workshops, but we don't really have any idea who we are as artists, what we're most interested in, what direction we would like to go. If you're like me and you come to art later in life, you don't even realize that there are such things as art genres initially. You sort of find that out as you go along. So that can be very dangerous and very damaging in very practical ways. In my teaching practice, I prefer a one-on-one approach, which is more of a mentorship kind of a thing. And probably 60% of my students have been colleagues that I've met at shows or in galleries, and they've come to me because they've seen a freedom in what I do that they're not feeling, or a lack of confidence for themselves that they see me having more confidence in, which is weird as a self-taught artist. So they've been very interested, and they've come and studied with me about that. One of the things that I found out is that they early on discovered that they were introduced to philosophies that maybe weren't right for them, that they were being pushed into a do and don't kind of a world where this is wrong, that's right, you shouldn't do this, you should do that. Things like that, that to be honest with you, I don't think really belong in art. I think that the sky is the limit when it comes to creating art. You should be allowed to experiment and explore yourself, your humanity, your impulses, whatever it is that's moving you, and then discover what works for you or what doesn't work for you. And a lot of teachers can be quite militant, and they can be quite, no, don't do that. And so it can really shut people down. I'm, as the intro explained, I'm an Alla Prima painter. So if anybody doesn't know what that means, it's just basically painting wet paint into wet paint. You don't have any underdrawing, no glazing of layers. You're just kind of trying to create a painting in this one sitting as much as you can. And it's a very improvisational way of painting. I'm trying to create a feeling in the work that I produce. So it's easier to do that and accomplish that if I'm feeling it strongly as I'm painting. So the longer it takes me to create a painting, the more removed from that I get. And that is not my preference. Luckily, I knew that early in my development. But let's say I went to a teacher who was very much entrenched in the glazing and layering approach, where they're taking 6 months to do a painting. That could have been very damaging to my development. So I encourage you to really figure out who you are. Some of the ways that you can do that, we'll talk about in a minute as well. But before we do, let's get through with the bad news, good news thing. So the bad news is that the art world can be very tough. The world can be very tough, we know that, but the art world can be particularly harsh on artists. And I think one of the reasons is because we're very vulnerable. Art demands a lot from us as human beings. We're exposing ourselves. There's a very famous quote that every painting, whether it be a narrative painting or whether it just be a simple image, is telling a biography of the artist to some degree. And I don't think we'll ever get away from that. We expose ourselves a lot as artists in this world, and that can be very risky, and it can take a lot of courage to do that. So the art world can be very hurtful if you're not prepared for that. So one of the things that I often encourage people to do is develop that thick skin, be ready for criticism, be ready for rejection. The truth of it is that it's not a matter of if you will experience those things, it's simply a matter of when and how badly it will hit you. One of my secrets to deal with it that I found very helpful over the years is that I use all criticism I receive as a way of growing. One of the first things that I'll do is I'll take up my own space. And what I mean by that is I'll hear a criticism and I'll ask myself, okay, is that legitimate? Did that person understand what I was going for? Did they understand the message of the painting? And if they did, then that automatically makes that criticism far more legitimate than it otherwise would have been. And then I'll catalog that and go, okay, well, so what can I learn from that? Even if it's meant as a tear down criticism, not constructive in any way, I'll get past my hurt feelings immediately, and I'll just simply assess it and say, okay, what can I learn from that? How can I grow from it? Can I grow from it? And if it is applicable, I will benefit from it. So that's the principal way I would encourage people to start viewing criticism. Rejection is another thing. You never really get used to that, but you're going to experience it. Galleries, submissions for shows, all kinds of places that you can get rejected. I've been rejected literally more times than I can count. I've been painting professionally for 22 years, and I've really lost count of the number of times that it's happened, but I've also been accepted to some wonderful things too. So don't let the rejection stop you from going. So that's all the bad news. Let's move into some of the good news. So discovering who you are. As I said, it's very important for you to have that inner knowledge. I think it's the foundation of every one of the things that we're going to be talking about: building an artist statement, understanding how to present yourself in a bio, how to approach galleries, how to represent yourself. Any of these things are really going to depend on your personal and deep understanding of who you are. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do that's a practical thing is discern for yourself what type of art you like. If you were going to go down a block, a street full of nothing but galleries, ask yourself which gallery would pull you in quicker. Would it be the realist gallery? Would it be the portrait gallery, the landscape gallery, the impressionist gallery, abstract gallery, mergings of those? And when you're in the gallery, which piece is pulling you stronger than the other pieces? And the crucial thing is there is not to simply recognize what pulls you, but ask yourself why. That's the most important thing. We can never ask why enough. Why am I so pulled by that painting? Why am I so engaged by that style? What is it that moves me so deeply that I connect with so much? Figure those things out. What is the style that's being used? What's the medium? Do you like oil, watercolor, gouache, pastel, or do you prefer sculpture? Where do you live on these things? Do you want to be a narrative painter? Any of those sorts of things. Do you want to tell stories? Or do you just want to create simple images? There's a famous Hudson School painter. I'm dropping his name at the moment, but he used to say, I'm not interested in telling stories. The landscapes I paint are the story all on their own. But then there are other people who want to tell socio political stories, stories about war, homelessness, you name it. And then there's a wide variety in between. What pulls you in terms of that? How do you want to express yourself? Another one that's a little bit deeper than this and has less to do with the actual art, but more to do with you as a human being becomes, who do you want to be in art? Are you using art as a means to an end? Or are you truly devoted to the art itself? That the very big distinction there. I've got a buddy down in the States that's we've been showing it shows together with other artists all over the place for 20 years now. And he's very, very, very honest. Art means very little to him on an emotional level. It's just easier than plumbing, is his famous quote. I am the opposite to him. I'm an absolute purist. I'm a devotee to art itself. I'm a servant to art. That's how I view myself. And my goal is to be the best skill-based artist that I can be. If I get known, okay, that's great, but I don't really care. I want to produce good work. So we're as opposite, and we joke about it all the time, we're as opposite from each other as we can be. But it's important to know. The reason it's important to know is because it will not only inform how you grow, the kind of work that you do, but how you're going to market yourself. Our goal as extremes from each other is to be able to make a living at it. His to become rich and famous and a household name, and mine to be able to continue to produce work full time. If I want to be the most skill-based artist I can be, I want to do it full time. So my work has to pay for itself. So that becomes very important in how am I going to achieve that, and what am I looking to do through it. Another thing you can ask yourself is, do you want to do it all? Again, I tend to fall a little bit more into that category. I sculpt, carve, I paint. I paint in different mediums. Oil is my preferred medium. Subjects don't matter to me. It matters to me that I paint. It doesn't matter to me as much what I paint. So it's becomes harder to market yourself, and we'll talk about that more in the gallery section. But it's true to who I am, and so it's very important to understand who you are, why you're that way, and where you can bend or twist according to the needs of marketing or promoting yourself as a business, or the creative outlets that you want to pursue in your work, and whether they're going to be at cross purposes or whether they're going to work quite well together. So knowing yourself, I could not emphasize more. And so many artists get into this not having those questions answered until years down the line. And they start getting better and better at their art and better at marketing their art when those answers start coming to them. But it would be so much nicer if you could start doing those things right away, as early as humanly possible. And then the last question I would say about that is, how are you going to get there? How are you going to achieve those things? And that can cover a wide variety of things, and a lot of them are going to be covered through our chat on different things. One of the ways that will immediately segue is in your artist statement. The artist statement is one of the things that's going to lead you into it. So if you know who you are in taste, I'm just reading this little statement, in taste, medium, theme, style, and skill, that's necessary for you to execute your art to the highest levels, lay out a path for growth for your skills, but also to market yourself successfully, which again leads right into how to write an artist statement. One of the neat things about writing an artist statement is that in doing so, you will start answering some of those questions for yourself, because that's really what the artist statement is about. It's about three main things right off the bat. The artist statement is about who you are, what you do, and how you do it. So what you want to accomplish with those three things is giving a perfect stranger a sense of who you are and what kind of work you do and how you do it, just within 2 or 3 paragraphs. So the who, what, and how are the main focus of it. What I would do is start you on a few content or grammar tips. And again, I keep everything practical. There's a lot of schools of thought about artist statements, and the one that I'm sharing with you, all of the concepts I'm sharing with you tonight are really much more practical things that are real world things. There's a lot of, I mean, let's face it, in the art world, there can be a lot of snobbiness and a lot of hoity-toity sort of mental attitudes. Those don't work as much as people think they do. There's not as many of those galleries in existence. There's not as many of those collectors in existence as there would have been. I think part of that is the emergence and the rise of self-representation and the internet. There's other reasons, but I think basically it's not as common to really try to be elite in your career. It's much better for artists nowadays to be accessible. So a lot of the tips that I'm giving you tonight are really based on that kind of a concept. I hope that makes sense. So one of the things to think about is say what kind of an artist you are right off the top. A lot of people start their artist statement saying, well, what I'm trying to accomplish in my work is such and such and so and so. They don't care. They don't know who you are. They don't know what kind of work you're doing. So it's very important just to say straight off the top, my name is Susan and I paint in watercolors and I try to capture florals with as brilliant colors as possible. Boom. Now they're going to care what you have to say about your process because they have it in context. And it's amazing, over the years I've served as a juryist and an exhibition curator and you name it, through different avenues. And I've probably read hundreds of artist statements, and it's amazing. Probably 70% of them start off explaining their process, but I have no idea who they are or what their pursuit is until way further down. And a lot of people won't be patient and read that. They'll just go, oh, okay, next. And that's what you don't want. You definitely want them going, oh, okay, that's interesting. Oh, that makes sense. That's the reaction you want. You don't want the next reaction. So be very practical about these things. If I'm talking really fast, I apologize. We're covering a lot of topics and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. The second thing is make sure that your philosophy, or other people call it the thesis, the essay, whatever you want to term it, make sure that's really, really clear. Sometimes, again, getting back onto a bit more of the snooty thing, is people will get very, very wordy in their processes, and this is how I do my art. This is the highfalutin philosophical thing I'm going for. I've seen that backfire on artists far more than I've seen it work. Um, Kind of a practical example is something like, let me think about it. As a modern artist facing huge technological flux in our society, I want to remind people about our humanity. That's a lot better than saying something like, how can I fancy that up? As a modern artist facing a multiplicity of forms and states and identified existential human traits that are in constant flux, you see where I'm going with it. That kind of an approach where it will make it seem like you're trying to put yourself far above the reader, and that removes them from you. But it can also, in terms of gallery response, uh, exhibition curator response, juryist response, and collector response, it can really put them off and backfire on you. So try to be truthful. Try to use good grammar, but try to be very honest and sincere about who you are. One of the other things I would say is probably the most important thing about an artist statement is try to avoid as much as possible any kind of wishy-washy language. Again, just thinking about content and grammar. Um, if you're showing unsure attitudes, um, sorry, I got behind on my slides because I got into my talk. So yeah, try to stay away from those, because if you're saying something like what I try to do in my art, or what I'm really attempting to accomplish in my art, or no, say things like what I accomplish in my art. Say it affirmatively. This is the place. The artist statement is a place where you can show them your confidence, show them who you are, let them know this is the person they want to deal with, and be brief with your ideas in that too. If you can say it in 2 sentences instead of 2 paragraphs, that is so much better and much more powerful. And it forces you to really think in a truncated way and a short form way that really allows you to create an elevator pitch should you need one, which is also beneficial. So let's talk about the actual structure of it. So one of the things is should I use first person? Should I use third person? It doesn't really matter. The first person is a lot more friendly, gives the reader a feeling like they're conversing with you directly, whereas the third person has a more detached, but can have more of a professional air depending on what you're looking for. They're both completely accepted. Nobody would criticize you for using one over the other. But I think it's really going to be up to what you prefer as a person. I tend to use the first person for my statements. I just like that better. Some of the things that you really want to think about in an artist statement too, and this is another one of those bad news things, is that you're going to use it for different things, and a lot of people find that very discouraging, because a lot of us artists, I think, are not given to marketing ourselves in the first place. It's kind of a foreign thing. It's an alien thing in our minds, and we have to really work hard to be able to do it or learn how to do it. If you're anything like me, for sure. But if you can learn the skills, it's very important. But a lot of us sort of think, oh, I'll only ever make one once. I only have to go through this one time, and then I can use it for the rest of my career. No, I can assure you that's not the case. Artist statements are not a passive thing. They are a very active thing. And you'll use them for different things. You'll have one for your website. You'll have one for applications to grants or shows. You'll have some for gallery submissions, and you'll have some for exhibitions. They're very tailored to each one of those things. And there's not really any way of getting away from that. Some artists get away from it by just skipping it entirely. They use a bio and they don't do an artist statement. I highly don't recommend that. Any way that you can help the public or a potential collector understand you more, the more you're going to encourage a sale, and the more you're going to help yourself make a living. It's just a cyclical thing. You can't really get away from it. Any advantage you can build for yourself, you really need to take that. So artist statements are something that are going to plague you for the rest of your career. I'm sad to tell you, and I am one of the ones that really avoided it for a long time. And I did pay a price. I was not gaining collectors at a rate that I should have because I was ignoring a lot of things. So believe me, I'm telling you things from experience. So the format and the substance, again, I would show confidence. That's very important because again, the artist statement is really about convincing them that you're in command of your craft. It doesn't mean you don't have areas to grow, but we can talk about that in a minute. But you're really trying to explain what you've achieved and who you are and how you've done it and so on. So, you know, the shy, insecurity, humble, avoid those things in an artist statement. They're okay maybe for a bio portion, and we can discuss that in a bit as well, but really not in the statement. The statement is your most affirmative action call. It shows the most confidence. And that's a big thing. This is the time to get them to believe in you as an artist. So I highly encourage you to focus on that. One of the things that you could do practically, for example, is instead of saying, what's a good way of saying that? I've gained a lot of skill and commands in these areas, but I really suck in these areas. That's an honest statement, and we could all make that statement. But you don't want to say that. You want to say, I continue to push into new areas of exploration. That's a nice alternative way of saying it, just as a practical example. So just as a recap, a takeaway, informal or formal, first person, third person, that's up to you. Show confidence, be clear and concise, and be prepared and resign yourself to the fact that you'll make several versions. It's just kind of the gig. So actually writing the dang thing. So what does that involve? I would recommend first off, the things that helped me the most were just laying down a whole bunch of keywords, just words that got me feeling connected to my own impulses, the things that matter to me in art, anything that kind of gave me a framework, and then I would take those keywords, any word that described me and my approach to art, that then I would just flesh into sentences, just expand it, and then I would have a paragraph or two paragraphs before I even knew it. And another thing that really helps me because, and I think really most artists are this way, I really do. We're perfectionists and we're hard on ourselves. I think that a very freeing thing is to don't judge it at first. Whatever you're writing down, just use that whole word vomit thing and just get it all out there, dump it down, dump the keywords down, scratch out the ones you don't like after the fact, write your fleshed out sentences based on those keywords, and then come back to it the next day. Give it some time. Don't feel you have to write it all at once. Let it be. Come back, see it with fresh eyes, and then edit at that point, and edit with no judgment. Just kind of go, okay, does that make sense? No, not really. I can say that better. Just be free and easy with yourself. I would study people. It's very, very helpful actually to study other artists and bio statements, but here's the clarification: not to copy them, not in any way, shape, or form, but to help avoid commonly used statements. The entire purpose of an artist statement is to explain who you are. So that's the focus. That's the thing that people want to know. The distinction between Ford and some other car company, we don't want them all to be the same. We want to know who you are as an artist. So you want to avoid common things. Again, having read hundreds, if not thousands of them over my career, I can say that the most common phrase I've ever heard is, Doug always was interested in art as a young child and drew avidly as a young child, and like so on and so forth. There's nothing wrong with that. It's true, but find your own way of saying it. So if you study other examples, you will see common phrases, and you can begin to avoid them and figure out ways of making them your own, even if your truth overlaps another artist's truth. And on that note, I would say stay away from AI and any prompts that come from AI. The reason is because AI can only pop out exactly what I just warned you against. It's a common themes dumping ground. It's a compilation and spit out process. So it's only going to give you the median, and it will not individuate. It won't help you achieve something with a real personality. If it's a lot of people think it's going to be a starting place for them, but even that starting place can take them down a very generic road. One of the things I would say is that the best artist statement is the one that will explain who you are, and only you know that. And there's nothing generic about it. The benefit of having to write down an artist statement is that it forces you to understand yourself. Well, both as an artist and a human being. That helps you learn more. It helps you on your growth path. But it also helps you to understand how to be able to communicate that to other people. And that's very necessary in this business. The ability to explain who you are to people when they ask, because they will ask, is very, very important. And not stumbling for it, not having to kind of go, gee, I've never really thought about that. Nothing will give a potential collector a moment of pause than you not knowing yourself. And again, I want to make all these things very practical, and for a lot of us, we want to be professional artists, but a lot of us are afraid to do that because we might not know how to market ourselves. We might not know how to sell a sculpture or a painting or whatever we produce. And so learning those things are very beneficial. Personally, I don't sell anything. I get to talk about what I'm passionate about. I talk about what I am engaged by, and they accidentally buy things. So I'm the furthest thing from a used car salesman or a pushy salesman where I'm like, hey, waka waka, come on over and buy this. No, I don't remotely have that personality. I cannot. I don't have those skills. So I've learned that sales to me is just connecting with people, and if they like the painting, they'll end up buying it. But it's connecting to them. And one of the barriers to that is if I can't converse about who I am or what I'm trying to achieve. So your artist statement can help you figure that out. And that can be very, very important. One of the other misnomers about artist statements, I think, is that everybody wants to shortcut things. And I would encourage you not. Don't make it easy on yourself. It should be hard to do because it's personal. It's forcing you to dig deep and understand yourself, and that's very crucial. And it's really, really not easy. It requires a lot of courage to look at yourself deeply and figure out who in the heck you are. And so, a lot of the statements that I've seen, and a lot of the statements that frankly get criticized the most, are very flowery BS that just doesn't convince anybody of anything. The ones that really work are the genuine ones that really actually move people. That's what people will connect with. And you can't do that if you don't pull from yourself to do it. So I would encourage you to do that. Probably one of the last and most important things about the process, I think, is to get help. Find somebody else, another set of eyes, get them onto it. Somebody that you trust, that has your back, somebody with a good eye for grammar, language structure, something like that. And let them edit your final draft. Let them be the one that says, yeah, that's a bit wordy over there. I think you can cut that back a bit, or what have you. And don't be precious about it. If they cut something, that really was precious to you, don't just stick it back in because you like it. Like, dialogue with them about it. Figure out, why didn't you like that? Why doesn't it explain the story? Because sometimes we view things in a way that isn't completely accurate. We have self images or views. I still see myself as a 12-year-old little skinny kid with huge glasses, and not a big fat old 60-year-old guy. So our self-image is not always what we think it is. So it's very important to have that feedback, but also in that kind of a dialogue, you might make them go, oh, I didn't know that's what you were going for. Well, here, let's say it this way, and it'll make more sense. So don't just sort of automatically do things. Really get into a dialogue and make it count. So I think that some keywords that you could maybe ponder are things like what medium you like, who you were influenced by, your heroes, inspired by, moved by, what's the purpose of your art, what are the goals of your art, what style, what are you striving for in terms of your growth, where do you want your audience to be in terms of the taste that your work is inspiring, all that sort of a thing. So I hope that helps with the artist statement. Transitioning into a bio, I would say that the bio is the exact thing, that it would follow all the same rules of an artist statement. The only difference is that it's more directly about you. It's far more personal. It should tell your story in a much more personal way. Like it's not about your mission statement. It's not about what you're attempting to achieve. It's just about how you came to be. And I think that's the best way I would put that. This one, unlike the artist statement, is almost always third person. Some of the reasons for that, I think, is that it gives it a more authoritative feel. I think psychologically, there was a Harvard professor that actually did a study on this, and psychologically, we tend to read things like bios, and we will get very awkward if it's in first person because we feel like we're in an intimate conversation with someone we don't know, and we'll kind of shut off of it a little bit. So if you write it in third person, you're making it slightly removed, even though it's all incredibly personal information. Like I was born into poverty, and I was like I've seen all kinds of bios that are very, very penetrating and very personal and very moving. But I don't get that feeling of being removed because it's in the third person. So it's like I'm reading a book and I'm not actually in a vulnerable conversation with this person. So I would say that's probably the main reason third person works for the bio. But it really follows all the same rules except for the substance. So the bio is a pretty uncomplicated thing. One of the things that a lot of artists will do, and I mentioned this earlier, is that they will avoid an artist statement and just go with a bio. And I think you can already see from the things that we've talked about why that's not always the best idea. The bio is who you are, but the artist statement is how you're going to slide who you are into the marketing of your work and try to make a living at it. So you don't want to miss one for the other. They really aren't interchangeable. They should be two different things. You can, however, combine them, and a lot of artists do that, usually only on a website, though, or something personal to you, the intro to a book or something. But it's not something you're going to combine if you're approaching a gallery or an exhibition that you want to show in. They will want them to be separate items, so bear that in mind. For a CV, a CV is a list of your most notable achievements. It's as simple as that, and it doesn't really have any recognizable popularized format. You can see them as bullet lists. You can see them as paragraphs that are written into a bio. You can see them in any conceivable way that you can think of. But really what you want to have is a list of your exhibitions, the notable collections that you're in. If you've done interviews, be it on local TV, magazines, if you've ever done a cover or have one of your pieces on the cover of a magazine, what awards you might have won. Just notable things that will make a collector go, oh, this person's serious. One of the barriers is if you're an emerging artist, you may not have any of those things. And so what do you do there? Leave them out. I think that's one of the most important things. Don't include it. Don't feel the pressure to include it. It just looks thin. And if it looks thin, it's not helping you. So wait until it does help you and then include it. And again, I'm being very practical about these things, but I've been at this game for 22 years, and I've traveled all over North America doing shows and working with galleries, and I've seen all kinds of versions and ramifications of these things. And I can tell you that the base ones that work is just the most practical. And one of the most practical things is if your CV is thin because you're just starting out, it doesn't help you. So don't show it. One of the ways of kind of overcoming the absence of a CV is show sold paintings very clearly on a website or in your marketing. That gives potential collectors confidence, which is really at the end of the day, all the CV is trying to do is instill confidence there are two kinds of buyers' popularity of artwork out in the world. There are investment buyers and love buyers, and kind of a combination of the two. The investment buyers are really the ones that care about the CV. The passion-based buyers don't pay as much attention to it. And that's just the practical truth. So for the investment buyers, they're probably not going to look at a lot of artists at their emerging stage anyway, unless they think their skill or talent is just extraordinary. So the CV is not going to really faze them. But seeing some sold paintings on the website could have a nice influence on them. So that's the way I dealt with my CV for the first. I said about at least 5 notable things in my note here, but I probably didn't really do a CV until my 10th year. And I had lots of things I probably could have put on it, but it just felt like it was short. So, and even now, personally, and it's a personal choice for me, I downplay my CV. I say a few notable things and I give a few little awards, but I do it in a paragraph form. I sort of avoid the litany of lists because it doesn't personally appeal to me. But that's everybody's choice. That's a dealer's choice thing. So find your way that you're comfortable with and just do that. But I wouldn't waste a lot of time on a CV if you're just starting out or worry that you don't have one. Not that big of an issue. Your statement and your bio are far more crucial. That's where people are going to connect a lot more strongly. It's usually, not always, but usually the investment buyers that are going to pay more attention to a CV, and they're a little bit further down all of our careers. So don't sweat that too much. If you got stuff, lay it in there. If you do put it in there, keep it updated. That's a big thing. So I would say that's probably good enough for the CV. So let's move on to creating a portfolio. You can see how all of these things are interlinked. It's really hard to talk about one without referencing the other. Creating portfolios is a very hotly debated issue these days. A lot of people have different ideas about it. I believe that the website is the big one, and that will probably strike a lot of people funny if you're younger. There's a real movement afoot in the last 5 years, particularly, that artists don't need websites anymore because of social media. You can market yourself very effectively on social media. Yes, you can market yourself effectively on social media, but only to a degree. A website is your home on the internet. It's your real estate that nobody else has. You're not run by an algorithm. I would even say held hostage by an algorithm. You're not going to be deleted. You're not going to have your content edited. Social media owns everything you put on it. A lot of people don't realize that. They can do whatever they want with your images. They can use them elsewhere. They can take them down. They can censor you. They can delete your entire profile. And then all of your marketing is gone. All of your whole thing is gone. You have to start all over again. Your website is your own. Nobody can do that. You own it. Every gallery that I've ever worked with, collectors that I work with, any high-end show that I've been accepted into, they expect a website. No questions asked. They will not take you seriously if you don't have a website. If you make an application and they look for you online and they only see social media, they will put you in the file 13 folder. And that is not great. It's almost akin to getting blacklisted. Sometimes they even remember your name and go, oh, that's this person. No. They don't take themselves seriously. So I couldn't emphasize enough that a website is really something very important for you. The benefits to the website is that it's not only that those entities will take you more seriously. It's a fantastic place to refer people if you're looking for potential models. As a plein air landscape artist, I will go out and see things. I'll find a homestead I like, or a truck, or whatever it is that I'm in the mood to paint that day, and I can approach the owner of that property, slap a card in their hand, and say, "Check out my website. Would it be okay if I just walked around your barn for a bit or did some paintings?" It can be. They can access it right then and there. I've got a little QR code. They can see everything right there. It's a great place to refer colleagues to if you want to set up shows with them so they can see your art more in depth. It's a great business card. It's the best business card you will ever buy. It's like a giant brochure style business card. Um, it is multidimensional. It's not only is it the passive business card, but it can actually be a full marketing and promotion site, the best one that you have. You're, as I say, not held hostage by algorithms. It's all based on your own marketing. And a lot of that marketing can happen through emails. Like you can really find um, you can find a list of collectors as you go. So you own it. You can't be run by algorithms. You can't be censored or deleted. You can create your own store. It's another thing. But the email is the most important one to me because your email list is really where you're going to have the most direct marketing potential. Your social media can feed that. That's what I use social media for. In a lot of cases, I will use my social media to promote my website and the businesses that I'm running off the website. I'm currently setting myself up. I do my own t-shirts now. So I'm in the process of creating a store where I'm going to be selling merchandise. And I'll include my paintings in that and different things as well. I used to use my website only as a business card, but I've transitioned because I've seen that it's been much more beneficial for me to be more aggressive with it. So social media, you might. I've kind of had conversations with about 20 of my colleagues that are very avid social media folks, usually spending quite a bit of money promoting or boosting their posts. And really only two of them out of the 20 have noticed a real sales growth out of those situations. Most of them have made a couple of little tiny sales or an occasional sale that has not offset the cost of boosting their social media. Whereas they can add those clients to their email list and they can do specific call outs for new works or an upcoming show or something where they can give that email list first dibs on anything that they're taking to that public exhibition, any kind of little hook or grab like that. And they get much higher results out of that email campaign than they ever will out of social media. So I think that the website really does prove itself out in any way you can consider it. Having said that, I absolutely don't think there's anything wrong with social media either. I'm personally shy and I have a really hard time overcoming that when it comes to marketing myself. I'm okay to just talk to people. I like people and I can be gregarious that way. But when it comes to selling or promoting, I struggle deeply with it. So I'm personally horrible at social media. I have had a social media expert say that I do very good posts because they're very genuine and they engage people. I just don't do them anywhere near often enough. So don't learn from me on that level, but definitely take my advice on the what it can be worth level. A lot of people try to coordinate their social media in terms of a greater portfolio. That's not what I use mine for example. And this expert with the Stampede, Calgary Stampede, they've been headhunted by several companies as a social media expert, and they really do know their stuff. And they said, no, Doug's got the right of it. He's just using the social media to feed them somewhere where they will buy. And they won't always buy, but they will buy more often than just off the social media post alone. So the art portfolio is nowadays really, really centered around your website. There are different ways of doing it. You can use a digital portfolio, a physical portfolio. The most important rule of all of them is that you want it to be 10 to 15 images of your best work if you're doing any of those kinds of portfolios. Preferably your most recent work because people want to see where you're at, particularly if they're galleries or exhibitions. They don't want 15-year-old work. They want to see what are you doing now. So that's a big thing that I would focus on. One of the other aspects of this is when you're doing a digital portfolio. One thing I wanted to mention before we went on a website, I personally use Squarespace. And the reason I use Squarespace is because I can access either a 10 or 20% discount if I use the name of somebody who's sponsored by them on YouTube. Usually it's 20%. And that doesn't stop. Like usually they promote it like, if you sign up for Squarespace and say like Peter McKinnon or somebody who, whoever it is, and you just say McKinnon in the code, you'll get that 20% automatically. And it's sort of sold to you like it's a one-time thing. It isn't. It will happen every time you renew that subscription. You'll get that 20% off. And I haven't found a lot of the other website builders offer that. So I take advantage of that. So just throw that out there for you. So back to the digital, I would say if you're approaching a gallery, what I would do as a rule of thumb is bring 3 physical paintings to a meeting with the gallery. This is when you have a meeting with the gallery. I could talk about approaching them in a second. But if you're actually there, I would bring 3 physical paintings, and the rest I would put on a digital iPad, laptop, whatever you have. You can also do it as a physical portfolio, like a printed out PDF. One of the best things that's being used nowadays, if you have a decent body of work, is create a little digital book, just a book on demand. And there's a great company that does that called Blurb, BLURB. And they do an amazing job printing, and for a pretty affordable price for just a one-time print. I tend to get 2 things. I carry one in my car, and then I keep one in my studio, so that I can show somebody at any given moment. So again, keeping it to just the 10 to 15. A lot of people really just throw a whole smush of images, but people don't want their time to be wasted. They don't want their time spent. They want to just get an idea right away. And so that's something to keep in mind, is just keep it a little bit short. In terms of your specificity, when you do things like your artist statement, a portfolio, it's really going to depend on where you're submitting it to. If you're, for example, applying for a grant, grants don't tend to give you a lot of room for anything, let alone an artist statement. So you need to be able to figure out how to really crush that statement down to just a paragraph if you can. And just a smattering of images with a link again to your website. And galleries almost live or die by it. It's just a huge thing. One of the things that I will do when I'm at a show, which is a very different thing now, I can have a much bigger portfolio at a show. The focus of something like that, when I'm actually at an exhibition, say I'm at the Calgary Stampede show and I've got 30 paintings on the wall, but I can also have a digital tablet set up showing my entire body of work. One of the reasons I do that is because that can gain me commissions. It can really show people the breadth and enormity of my work. It makes a clear division of what's sold and what's still available that might not be on display currently. So it's a very comprehensive way of doing it. And that is a portfolio, and it's a digital portfolio, but it's a specific one for a show. So you have, just like your artist statement, it's going to be tailored to whatever you're doing it for. So your portfolio shouldn't be something that you're thinking of as just a one-shot thing either. You want to adapt it for the need. And that's a really important thing. So on that vein, I would say if we're looking for gallery representation, for example, if we want to talk about that for a minute, it can be terrifying. And in my experience, I've never suffered humiliation quite as badly as I do when I approach a gallery. They all have different standards. They all have different approaches, but no matter what it is, it still feels horrifying. And it makes you feel a little bit small. And I don't know if there's any way around that. You just feel kind of awkward coming into it. The best thing to do universally is check their website and see if they have submission standards posted. If they don't, you just gotta roll the dice and hope for the best. The approach that I found is the most successful, and you'll see a lot of tutorials and a lot of people talking about things where they say don't ever do any of these things, but you have to approach them somehow, is just a base email. And it's if they don't have a submission protocol that they're posting for you, then I'll just say, hi, my name is Doug Levitt. Here's 2 examples of my work with my website link. I'm interested in representation with your gallery. Let me know if you think I would be a fit. And I keep it perfunctory, short, and as business-like as I can, and then I get out of there. And that's again where that website comes in crucially. Usually, though, what you'll find is that the gallery will have submission requirements. And we can talk about that in a second. One of the things, we'll back up a bit, I would say, that you want to do in terms of gallery approaching or trying to get ready to do galleries, particularly if you're starting out in your career, I would say go local and start very small. Get experience. That's a big thing. Is when we first start, we don't even know how to hang a painting. Usually, we don't know whether we should frame. Should we use a proper frame or a gallery frame? How do we want to do it? How do we present that work? We want to learn how to handle price cards. What information should be on the price card? We want to. The best thing that you can get out of showing, especially if you've never done it before, is how the public is going to react to your work. Just seeing people see your work is just an invaluable experience. It can be hard if they don't like it, but it can be amazing if they do like it. It's very helpful either way, though. It's also very beneficial if you get a chance to engage with that audience in terms of a sale, because it teaches you how to handle that. That gets you prepped for dealing with things further down the road, like a gallery. Associating with other artists, so networking becomes very important. Getting a crowd around you, getting a support group, people who understand what you're going through, people you can bounce ideas off of. You can learn from each other, coach each other, encourage each other. My best advice to you, again, it ties into what we very first started talking about, is learn to be egoless. Let criticism help you, not hurt you. Especially if the person talking to you is in your corner, then they mean no harm. They really do mean help. So take that. Art is so personal to us, it's almost impossible not to get hurt feelings when you get criticized, but try to skirt by that as quickly as you can and get to the meat of it, which is this helpful, and make it helpful. You can help each other set up shows. You can cooperate with each other to set up shows, rent a community hall and just set up a show for a weekend. Any kind of experience like that adds to that CV, adds to your knowledge, your experience, and helps you get ready for the next step. So I can't encourage you to do those things more. I would say enter competitions as well. There's some in magazines. There are some competitions online. You'll find competitions everywhere. Local competitions are always the best. If there's like an Alla Prima competition event, if there's a gallery exhibition competition, hunt them out, enter them. If you're like me, you'll rarely win them, but when you do, it feels fantastic, and you carry on, and it does help. It's another CV builder, but it's just more experience. It's more things that get you used to this. Get you used to being in the public eye with your personal work. That is huge. I can't encourage it enough. Open calls are a thing that sometimes galleries or exhibitions will do. Well, they'll just send out a wide open call saying, we're looking for artists to join this submission. It costs you such and such to submit your pieces. The only caveat for this one is just be very, very, very careful of scams. And I don't mean like scam where people are obviously fake. I don't mean that. I mean, there are legitimate organizations out there, but their open call is just a way for them to make submission money, and especially the online ones. So they don't really give you the exposure or the profile that you're hoping for. So do some research into any one of them that you're looking at, and don't just take them for granted. Study and attend galleries. This is a kind of a this is a big one that people miss on. Artists tend to walk into gallery situations thinking, I want representation. That's their sole thought. And they just go into the nearest gallery and go, would you represent my work? Study the gallery. Make sure that your work would fit. Make sure the gallery wants to be approached. Some do, some don't. More importantly, it's very crucial to recognize that a gallery is a business. They're needing to make money. I mean, they want to make money, but they need to make money. Their overheads are usually incredibly high. And so it's a very stressful business for them. So as artists, we need to respect that. It's very important, I think. My best sort of advice on this, and it's given me great gallery relationships thinking this way, is that I approach galleries thinking about what I can do for that gallery, not the other way around. Am I going to be helpful to this gallery? Will my work fit the gallery? Do I think my work will sell well for this gallery? That really is what it should be about, because they're a business that's already established and you're hoping to enter into that business. So approaching it with the opposite attitude of like, oh, this gallery needs me. They should represent me. It's kind of just putting the cart before the horse. You're not respecting their business, and you want to do that. And one of the reasons why that bothers people, if artists miss that, is because they're very often wasting their time approaching them when they don't belong there. Like they might be saying, "Oh, I'm the best portrait painter in the world, and they really need to represent me," but they only sell landscapes. It's not appropriate really to do that. So really do your research and make sure that you matter to them and that you would have a home there. It's profound how many artists don't do that and why we get a bad name with galleries. If you've ever had the experience of walking into the gallery and having to find out you're an artist and suddenly disengage with you, you'll know why, because that's the main reason why. So be very careful of that. Some folks think that if it's a landscape gallery and they're a good portrait artist, that they might actually fill a hole. That's not usually going to be the case. The gallery knows its audience, they know what they can sell, and you're not going to bring them anything that they don't already know or haven't already tried. So it's just very good to know that you fit the gallery and you may have a potential home. I think that you can follow the online procedures. Almost, I would say probably 60 to 70% of the galleries out there have some kind of an online profile where they say, this is how we want you to submit work. Follow that, follow it to the T. Don't try to, move around it or impress them by presenting yourself in a different way. That will just annoy them and they won't look at you. And I'm just being as practical as I can about it. It's just the facts of the matter. And it's unfortunate that things go that way, but it is. So if they have guidelines, follow those guidelines. There are galleries that don't want to be approached at all. They don't want emails. They don't want anything. How do you get into those galleries? That is a much longer game. And it's a political game that a guy like me doesn't want to do. So I'll be very honest about that. I know how to do it. I don't want to do it. So it would just depend on whether it's something that appeals to you. But the best way of doing it is to just play their game. You can go to their openings, engage in the openings, comment on the artwork, just mention things to the gallery owner, the curator, whoever might be attending that opening. On their social media, join their social media, follow them, comment on their posts. They will eventually start to notice you. This is a very long game, and you have to have an inordinate amount of patience for it. And you have to really, really, really want to be in that gallery to play that game, I think. And I think there's a lot of other opportunities, so it just doesn't appeal to me. I just want things to be handshake, look in the eye, we get along, merit-based. That's my personality. So a lot of what I might be passing on to you isn't stuff I would necessarily do, but I could certainly recommend for you to get ahead. And that's the best way of getting into those galleries. So the recap is to start local, go with open calls, network with other artists, very, very important, and be persistent and patient. Don't let the rejection get you, because there will be rejection. It's just a part of it. Just accept it and don't even think that it's an issue. Just know that's it. Carry on. So I think more importantly nowadays, in some ways, I think every artist needs to be sort of a jack of all trades. I think that you need to have an iron in every fire if you're able to organizationally. You need to be able to be in a gallery, you need to be able to do shows, and you need to have an online presence, and you need to represent yourself. So in representing yourself, it's really not that different than approaching a gallery. Your website is the biggest thing. I will always emphasize that. But past that, your website, your social media is community shows. Again, starting local, starting small, getting yourself into the game, getting to know the business in your area. There's a whatever old phrase there is, like mow your own backyard before you go to somebody else's. We always want to expand our reach as artists, but we definitely want to get to know our own market first and build ourselves locally. That can have a real chain effect that can build you elsewhere. So practically speaking, I would say community shows, your group exhibitions. You can start off with coffee shops, alternative venues. A lot of restaurants are open to having art. You run risks with those because they're often not insured for art, and it can be difficult to have art in a very public, busy space because something might get damaged. So kind of a rule of thumb that a lot of my colleagues have used over the years, taking advantage of opportunities like that, is that they don't put big works that carry a bit of a price tag with them. They'll put in smaller pieces, and if it gets damaged, it's not that crushing to them. So just think of things like that too on a practical level. But again, online, your website is the king. It's the one that you want to pay your most attention to, particularly that email list that we were talking about. So one of the things that's more important about self-representation, and this involves every area of your career, but particularly how you present yourself as a self-represented artist, is practical, everyday things that we never ever talk about. Be honest. It's amazing how many artists sort of adopt a scammy persona. They got a waka thing, or they're trying to talk you into sales, or they're taking Dale Carnegie courses on how to sell people the hard way or whatever. It's like just be as genuine as you can. Be honest. Try to never do anything sneaky in this business. It's your reputation is everything in this, because you are your own brand. You have to think of it that way. If you are an artist selling your goods, you are that company. So the reputation of that company is built on your own sense of integrity, your own sense of honesty, and you want to keep your reputation clean. And there's a lot of game playing in this gig. And you can fool people. You can talk a game up to people and it'll work for a while, but the art industry is a smaller industry now with the internet, and word will get around, and you will get blacklisted if you do sneaky things, undersell galleries, go make sales behind your gallery's back, steal clients from other artists. Like, there's all kinds of things that can happen in this business. Avoid all of that. Just be honest. Keep your word. Never make a promise you can't keep. Be on time. If you say you're going to be there, be there. If you say you're going to do it, do it. Value your work is another one. Don't undersell yourself. Don't oversell yourself. Try to, in terms of that, what we were talking about at the beginning, knowing who you are as an artist, also take really good, hard looks at who you are as an artist, where you're at in the food chain. Are you an advanced artist, intermediate, emerging? Where do your skills really lie? Try to be as harshly honest with yourself as you can on it, and then price your work accordingly. Don't undersell yourself. That's what our tendency tends to be. It's very important to take up your space. That gives people confidence in the work, particularly the buyers that buy for love, but also have a bit of an investment in mind. If they think, well, this artist is young, they're like 21, 22, just starting out, but they're asking 1,800 for this 18 by 24 piece, so they mean business. I think I'm going to take a risk on them. I'm going to assume that they're going to be here in 5 years, and that work will be increasing in value. So that really does become part of the game too. It's a difficult part of the game if you are kind of naturally not a marketer and a little bit more humble about those things, like most of us are, frankly. But it's a very important thing. The very first show I did was the Calgary Stampede, which is a big art show in a local pond, right? Big fish in a small pond. And I was going to price a 30-inch by 24-inch painting at $500, and I had several artists waiting with me, going, no, dude. A, you're actually a solid painter, and B, you're going to tell collectors that that painting's worthless. You've got to put a $3,000 price tag on that. And I nearly lost my mind. I couldn't do it. I compromised and put 2,000 on it, and it sold within 5 minutes of the show opening. So it kind of taught me something. I was like, well, I probably undervalued that. They were probably right, because that sold pretty fast. But we learn, we grow, our confidence will build. But if you can take my advice early on, value your work appropriately. Don't undersell yourself. Be kind to people. Don't ever judge people based on their visual appearance. I like people, so it's never really been a problem of mine. But I've seen a lot of artists make the mistake of snubbing somebody that wasn't dressed well, and it turned out that person was a massive art collector and a million, if not a billionaire, and they just were dressing down so they weren't noticed, and they were rude to them, and they lost out on what could have been career building sales. That's just not a good way to be, period. Regardless of sales, you should just be kind to people no matter what. I personally believe that we should be ambassadors of art in our culture. Canada is a very young country. It doesn't know fine art like other countries do. It's not in our consciousness. So it falls to us to be seed planters. So I spend time with anybody, whether they're a buyer or not, when I'm at a show, and talk with them openly and honestly about art, and try to share my passion. That's the only way I sell, by the way. As I mentioned before, that's my accidental sales technique, is just chatting with people, and it ends up, I get sales. But I never try to sell anything. It's always a surprise to me when I do, because I'm just chatting with people. So there is that laid back approach if you want to do that one. Be professional, like I say. Don't ever say something that you don't do. Don't make an agreement that you don't keep. These things will kill you in the industry. It will just, buyers will move away from you quicker than a wave going out to sea. So watch those things. Now, some practical things, very practical things. If you've never done this before, or if you have but haven't really got a system for yourself, this will hopefully be helpful for you. People will always want to negotiate the price of your painting, no matter what you put on it. In my 22-year career, I can count on my two fat little hands. Actually, I can count on one of my fat little hands the number of people who just paid the price I was asking for without negotiating. Literally, everybody will negotiate with you. The first negotiation tactic that I use, that I think we mostly use, is that I eliminate the tax. I'll say, oh, I'll cover the tax. And bear in mind that that will still be paid come tax time, because the government doesn't negotiate. So you are actually, out 5% more for your work. So it is a legitimate starting point. And it will usually get the deal done, but it doesn't always. So I will say, okay, how about 5% off? So now you're getting 10% off, GST plus 5%. I only usually go 10% off as a rule. If that still doesn't get it done, that's 15% in total. So 10% off the value of the painting is the most I would do. I'll point out how damaging it is to my market value to sort of garage sale my work. And as a potential buyer of my work, they should be as concerned about that as me. They want my work to hold its value. And that argument usually makes the difference. Doesn't always. Sometimes if it's a really, really, really faithful collector, I will go further. Or they're buying multiple paintings, I'll go 20%, but I never go past that, no matter what, because the market value is crucial. And if you make those deals, especially if you're desperate, and believe me, I've been desperate in many of my shows where I've been exhibiting, just absolutely dying to make a sale, needing to make a sale, and I have walked away from those sales if they just keep pushing me too hard, because that will get around. Those kinds of wheeler dealers will brag about it. They'll say, oh, I got dug down to blah, and that will get around, and that will anger people that have paid full price or paid closer to full price. That will create a resentment, and it does get around. Believe me, it gets around. It's amazing how this community talks to itself. So I literally have walked away from sales if it didn't work. and it's the hardest, probably most painful thing I've ever done. But it's always worked out in the end. Sometimes they will come back and go, okay, all right, you got me. I'm going to do it. That's the usual thing that'll happen. But if it doesn't, somebody else might come by and buy that work, and they might even buy it for more than the discount I was offering the other person. So it can work out in your benefit. So don't ever let the desperation let you down a not good road. It's always think of the long term, not the short term, if you can. And believe me, I get what it's like to be in those high pressure situations and how hard it is to make that decision. But I encourage you to make that decision when that time comes up, and it will. I can almost guarantee that. If you get somebody coming for a commission, protect yourself on that. The best way to do that is to take a 50% non-refundable deposit. And I say non-refundable because a lot of the times commissions will not work out satisfactorily. And they might take the final product, but they don't want to pay the full price for it. They're not happy with it. Who knows what happens. It's very hard to get out of this person's brain into your brain, out your hand, what they're looking for. Unless it's something simple like a child's portrait or a pet portrait or something of this sort. But if they're looking for something, that requires some creation and art direction, those are very tough commissions. So you want to get that 50% deposit on that, and you want to make sure it's non-refundable and they understand that. I've never had anybody walk away from a commission because of that. Generally in my life, I will charge more for a commission than I would for a painting off the wall. I usually charge either double or at the minimum half again what I'm charging for what's on the wall, because they are a lot more work, and they will understand that too if they're serious. So don't lack negotiation power in your business. Take up your full space and treat your work with the worth that it deserves. Believe in yourself. Believe in what you're doing, and believe that they will want it enough that they'll pay what you're asking for, and they will. It's a proven thing. One of the things, we'll get on to how to. I hit my space bar by accident. Sorry. One of the things I wanted to finish with on representing yourself again in terms of very, very practical things, and it's amazing that we even have to say these things, but I've just seen so many examples to the contrary that I feel it's important to say these things. Update all of your stuff regularly. Have your paintings in good shape, particularly if you're showing them at a show, if you're presenting them to a gallery. I've seen artists with tears in their paintings, believe it or not. I've seen them with very dinged up, banged up frames. We're often hand to mouth artists, so we'll often believe that it'll be okay. It's framed, it's okay if it's got a ding on it. They might not even notice the ding. They will notice it. They will notice it, and it will hurt you, and it will close down options for you. And another one that is just crazy that I even need to say, but make sure you're clean. Hygiene is crucial. It's staggering how many people I've seen get walked away from because they didn't have good hygiene. You're running a business. You got to take care of those things, and they're common sense. But believe me, they're not common sense. Literally, I've lost count of the number of times I've encountered that issue with folks, and it's a serious issue. If you're like me and you're not a suit person, that's fine. I mean, just make sure your clothes are clean, not rumply, that sort of thing. Even if I oftentimes wear my painting clothes to shows. It's a great marketing tool, in fact, but just make sure they're clean and don't have BO smell and all kinds of stuff. They can be smattered in paint and people won't care as long as you're clean. Don't be late to things, shake hands firmly, make eye contact, all of that. Just your business is your business. You are your own brand, and you've got to conduct yourself in the best light humanly possible. So yes, documenting your work is the final little chat that we have here. This is very simple. This little slate that I'm showing you right here is all you need to do. But it's crucial that you keep it. It's crucial that you back it up. This is your provenance. This is the thing that anybody, if you become any kind of a known artist on any level, this is all people are going to care about. This is the history and the lifespan of your paintings or your sculptures or whatever you're using, your fine art photographs, whatever it may be. So you want to put your title in there. This is actually an example of this is a real life example of what mine looks like. The only thing I took out of it was the buyer's name and email and phone. So you've got your title, you got the size of the piece, you've got the medium that it was in. That medium is two things. It's oil on panel or oil on canvas mounted board, whatever it might be. The dimensions of the sculpture, if it's this high by that wide by that deep. Sometimes sculptors will put the weight of it. I don't think that's particularly necessary. It's more just the dimensions of it that people are interested in. Whatever your price was, the date it was created, the buyer who bought it, their name, email, and phone, the date it was purchased, whether or not you charge tax, and then an image of the artwork so that you can keep track of what it is. Sometimes you don't remember what your title was, so the image is very, very important. And that's what you want to keep for your record keeping and back it up. I've had 2 computer crashes in the last 5 years. In both cases, the fan stopped working and it just burned up the hard drive. That's an issue. So I keep everything backed up with 3 different backups now. I've lost my entire career's provenance. I'm just rebuilding it now. So don't live that problem, because if I ever become a known artist down the road, like an internationally known artist, and somebody wants to do a retrospective of my work, they won't know where the work is, because I don't know where the work is. And that is a very sad situation. And you can trust in digital things, but you got to make sure they're backed up. So this is a very simple thing to keep track of. It only takes a few seconds. And it's, again, absolutely sad how many artists don't do it. They don't take the time to do it. And it's just also a good way of organizing yourself. It helps with your taxes. It helps keeping record of your income. It just makes everything so much easier for you. So don't skip this step. And I think that's all I've got. One thing I did want to say is that when it comes to the size, the convention, and not a lot of people follow it these days, but the convention is to use the vertical. So if you've got a painting that's 36 inches high by 24 inches wide, then you start with 36. If it's horizontal and it's 24 by 36, you would start with the 24. So it's the vertical side that comes first. And that's sort of the gallery system, museum system. It's gotten a little bit less precise over the last number of years because a lot of artists don't know that. So it's a little bit more loosey-goosey, but that is the convention if you're interested in that. And one last thing about pricing, I didn't include that. It just occurred to me. Generally speaking, it's a good idea to come up with some kind of formula for yourself for your pricing. I follow a per inch model. So when I first started out, I charged $2 per square inch. So I would just go 36 by 24 times 2. That would give me my price range. A lot of artists are a little bit screwy on that these days as well, and it really plays with their market value. And I can't keep track of it. I'm dyslexic, so numbers don't work for me at the best of times. So if you were to call me out of the blue and say, "Hey, Doug, I'm interested in this painting. It says on the website it's 20 by 30. What are you charging for that?" I will not know. So I'll just grab my phone, grab the calculator, go 20 by 30 equals times. I currently charge $5 a square inch now, so I go times 5, and it'll give me a price. And I usually do a range on either side of that price, and that gives me some negotiating room as well. So I can never be at a loss. I will always know what my painting is. A lot of artists do a sliding scale. They'll get more expensive the smaller the painting gets, and less expensive the bigger it gets. And there's lots of formulas you can see online for that sort of thing. The one thing that I personally would worry about is the more loosey-goosey thing I've been seeing lately, where people just don't assign any kind of value structure to it. Like I know a fellow that he charged $30,000 for a 40 by 50 inch painting, but he had another one that was the exact same size that he was selling for 4,500. So one of the buyers was talking to me, and he was like, I don't know what I don't know what his paintings are worth. Like, I mean, that's a huge discrepancy. And I was like, yeah, I haven't seen that very often either. And I certainly wouldn't be able to keep track of that. So I make my pricing easy for me because I don't know how else to do it. But I do try to follow that, price it with respect. And one of the rules that I've followed over my years in terms of pricing is that if I sell a certain amount of my work over the course of the year, I can justify a 10% increase or a 5% increase the next year. And that's how I can begin to slowly add to my market value. And that's how I got from $2 a square inch to $5 a square inch. So I hope that helps. We can take our break now, and then I look forward to any questions you guys might have after. So, Marianne, you can take it from here. Thanks for listening to me, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Doug. That was actually really informative. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to put the feedback form link into the chat for everyone. If you can provide your feedback, that would be really great sometime before you leave tonight. And any questions that you have for Doug when we come back from break, Doug will take the time. We'll go through your questions. Just throw them in the chat and he'll get to answering them. So thanks very much. We'll see you in 5.
Okay. Thanks very much. Now I'm just muting. I'm just going to go up and have a very quick bite, and then I'll be down.
Sure, no problem.
So I'm just muting for the sec. Or I probably don't really need to, but. Mute. There we go. I'm back.
Awesome. Thanks for coming back.
So how did that go, do you think?
That was fantastic. Thank you for that. And we
Really?
already, yeah, it was great.
Okay.
It was helpful for me, Doug, to be honest, because, and I'm going to go through the questions with you.
Okay.
Okay. So you don't have to worry about finding them. I'll read them off for you.
Oh, okay. Great. Good.
Okay.
Good.
So one of the first questions. Oh,
one second. Can we close down this image so then we just have a gallery of our faces?
yeah.
Oh, do I need to stop sharing the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There should be a real red thing saying stop.
Oh, there it is. Stop share.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So the first question is, how do you deal with people who want to commission outside of the gallery, but the gallery feels this is ripping them off? What do you think about galleries demanding exclusivity?
It really depends. When I first started showing work here in Calgary, which is where I first started showing, I don't know why I said it that way. When I first started showing work, Stephen Lowe Gallery approached me, but they wanted exclusivity. So when I did the Stampede show, which I had already started to get a bit of a name for, they wanted 50% of all those sales. And so I declined their representation because if, well, when I'm doing that, I'm the one setting up the show. I'm the one paying for the show. I'm the one selling the work. So it doesn't make sense. And I mean, if we're a partnership for each other, I would have your cards there. I'd be promoting you as my gallery, and I'd be sending work to you when people, because a lot of people don't buy at the show. They might buy after the show after they've thought about it. So I would funnel those sales through to you. So there's certain levels of exclusivity that I don't think are appropriate. But there are others that I think are very appropriate. Like I try to be as honorable as I can in my dealings with galleries. So what will end up happening, say, if I'm with Gallery ABC and somebody sees my work at the gallery, but then approaches me behind the gallery, they just come to me directly and say, would you do a commission for me? I always inquire, mostly because I'm a curious guy and I like to get to know people and I like talking to people. I'll say, well, where did you find out about me? And they'll say, oh, I saw your gallery. Then I will give the gallery a 20% finder's fee for that, even though they had nothing to do with it other than just they saw me at the gallery. They didn't buy from the gallery. They didn't get sold by the gallery. They just saw my work there and then approached me. But I don't think it's appropriate to exclude them from that because I wouldn't have made that commission if it weren't for that person seeing me in the gallery. So I think there's you have to work by your own ethics. One of the things that made galleries cagey with us is that people didn't do that. They would actively seek buyers out behind people's backs, and that's given it's made things very contentious for artists to galleries. So I recommend anything you can do to make things less contentious. Think of a gallery representation like a partnership, not unlike a marriage. You say like you have to be there for each other. What works for you is going to work for them and vice versa. And if you take an adversarial approach, it's not going to be good for either person. And you want everybody to do well. And it works much better. I've never had a bad relationship with a gallery for my initiative. I have had galleries try to steal from me, and that's not been fun. Usually, it's been happening when I used to have a lot of galleries in the U.S. and the 09-10 crash sort of changed that to a degree. I still have some galleries down there, but I used to have 7. And unfortunately, 5 of them either tried to steal my work outright or they just didn't pay me for things they sold because I was so far away I couldn't police them. So it's nice if you are dealing with a distant gallery to have people in that area that can kind of check on it from time to time and say, oh, have they sold that piece or have they not? And then you can find out. So probably answered more than the question you were asking, but there you go.
No, that was really helpful. So one of the next questions is, how do you maintain a balance between, sorry about the background noise. How do you maintain a balance between following inspiration and adhering to deadlines or professional commitments?
Uh, that's the eternal wrestling match right there. Number one, personally, again, all these questions are going to come from what I think personally more than what a body of artists might say. In my belief, I don't let any painting leave the studio unless it's ready to be seen. Otherwise, it's just a frisbee in the closet for me. Um, I've seen it over and over and over where artists have given into that tension. They say to themselves, "I need 20 paintings to fill this wall space," and they will bring 20 paintings come hell or high water. I will bring 16 paintings if the other four aren't ready. I'll bring 12 if the others aren't ready. It doesn't matter. I don't let anything into the wild unless it's ready to stand on its own feet and have a life. There's no benefit to me to do that. It's an unbaked pie and nobody wants to eat it. So I make sure the painting is what it was meant to be. Otherwise, I bring less. And part of the success of that you can do from a different point of view is what I was saying a few minutes ago. Don't make promises that you can't keep. If a gallery says, "Can we get 8 new works by February 15th?" Be realistic about it. Look at yourself and go, "Okay, well, I got a lot of things coming on in the next little while. I got this, I got that show, I got, you know what? I can't do that. I can get you 4 pieces." They will respect that far more than if you say, "Yeah, I'll get you 8 pieces," and then you send them 4 decent ones, but 4 kind of not great ones that are not up to your potential, which is what we tend to do when we're under pressure like that. We just kind of go for it and just kick them out, and it's not helpful. So definitely that's my philosophy. But I can tell you 6 out of the 10 artists that I show with don't follow that philosophy. They just get them out there. They believe in quantity over quality. Sometimes they just want the sales. So you got to follow your own path on that one. But that's my belief anyway. Same goes for auctions, by the way. A lot of artists will enter auctions and they'll just put in what they call their soft work. It really wasn't ready to be seen by people. Or they put it out there thinking it was ready, but it wasn't quite as good. They couldn't put their finger on it. They've taken it to 3 or 4 shows. They haven't sold them. And so they'll use an auction as a dumping ground. The auction is, I wish artists didn't have to do auctions in some ways because they're really unfair for us fiscally, but they are the most high profile things that artists tend to be involved with, and they will be a calling card. So you want your best work to be in that auction. If you're going to participate in an auction, make sure it's a kick-ass piece. Don't equivocate on it. Make sure it's a strong piece that you're very proud of, because that catalog is going to be in the buyer's minds for years to come, and it can help build your legacy. So even though a majority of artists might choose a certain path, it doesn't make it the best path. So I would throw that out there.
That's helpful. Now, Maria has a list of questions that are very specific. Her
Sure.
questions are: who does your digital printing? If you do digital
I am
prints.
currently using Mr. Dyslexic needs to think about this because there's 2 companies that are so close in name. Shopify is who I'm using because it's a print that the t-shirts in particular are print on demand. Locally, print on demand is great because I don't have to go into overhead, and they control the shipping. They control the quality control on that point of view. I buy every shirt before I put it out for sale so that I can quality control that part. And if I don't like the material or I don't like the printing, then I'll go again until I find it's just so I might have 2 or 3 of these kicking around, but only one of them is one I'm going to end up selling. But locally, I use Little Rock Printing for all my local printing needs, like business cards, any kind of a promotional brochure that I might need, any kind of specialty print item that I might do. Like I created my own mouse pads with my logo and stuff. So I went through them. I tried to go local as much as I could. The difference, though, when it came to something like a merchandise thing, like coffee cups and T-shirts and things, it just made more fiscal sense to go print on demand rather than going into an enormous investment in overhead, having places to store, having to ship it all myself. I'm a one-man band. Like a lot of artists have a spouse that does the business side and they just do the creative side. My wife and I, she has a very demanding career in her own right. She's media relations for the city and a former crime journalist, so she doesn't have the time, but we also overlap each other's skills and weaknesses a little too much. So as she'll jokingly say, she's useless to me on those fronts. So we kind of share out each other's situations. So I am a one-man band when it comes to this. So my time becomes a real issue. I teach, I've got a YouTube channel, I've got a lot of different things that I'm trying to do to run this business. And so I just couldn't take on overhead and shipping and all that stuff. So I just went straight print on demand.
Yeah.
And the blurb is the best one that I've tried for a book. I've only tried 3 companies, but blurb was by far and away the best result that I liked. I don't have one right now. I ended up giving them away to 2 clients at the Stampede Show, so I have to order another one now. But it'll definitely be through blurb. So if you're looking at a print on demand kind of PDF type portfolio, I would recommend them. Little Rock is very, very good locally, but they just charge a lot more than blurb does. So I wish I could give the business to a local company, but it's just a little more expensive. I think I paid $21 per book from blurb, and it was going to be 50 plus for any company in town at a minimum. So it just made more sense. So go local if you can. If you can't, find another alternative.
The next or question in your list is, who hosts your website?
Squarespace does. And it's just because, well, it's for 2. I was going to joke and say it's just because I'm cheap and I get that 20% off thing by putting in McKinnon's name every time. But it's also because as a dyslexic, there are certain things like I can read a novel very well if it creates images for me, so I don't have a reading issue. But I have a reading issue if it doesn't create pictures for me. And the programming side of websites is brutal for me. And I've created websites myself. I used to create them all myself. I was a designer for years and did logos and branding for people. And I was pretty good at that for the things that I did. But there were other people to do texts and background stuff and whatnot. So my website building was very hard for me. And so when I wanted to do a redesign, I just looked for the one that had the easiest interface. And I have to say, out of all of them that I've tried, I went GoDaddy. I tried every single one of them that I could think of at the time, and Squarespace was, for my learning interface, the absolute easiest to deal with. I can still get I'm getting my whole store set up by myself. I'm not getting anybody to help me. And it's all through Squarespace, and it's just painfully easy. And what I can't understand, their online chat support is like bingo, and they are super enthusiastic and willing to help. So it's made all the difference for me. GoDaddy was pretty good, but their support was poor. I didn't like that, and it wasn't as visually easy for me. So it just depends on what your needs are and what your learning interface is, I should say. So my issue, Squarespace was the clear leader. But if you're a YouTube person, just find anybody that says they're sponsored by Squarespace and you'll get an automatic discount for it. Just use their name in the promo code and bang, you get it's anywhere from 10 to 20, but usually it's 20.
Wow.
And so a 20% discount is fine. And it works repetitively. Like I say, it won't just work the one time. If I put it in anytime, every year I renew. I don't do the automatic renew, or you don't get it, but I'll renew it physically every year and I'll get a 20% discount every single time. So
what do you recommend for website style and content? Any specific recommendations on that, or just kind of sort of follow the layouts that?
Well, the beautiful thing about Squarespace that I also liked is that you could mix and match their templates. So it was confusing to me at first because you had to choose a template. But once I chose that template, I could mix or match. So I could kind of set up my pages however I wanted to. They've gone even further now, where it's literally just drag and drop, and they've got animation motions and all kinds of things that you can do with it that can make it look quite sophisticated. I tend to, for art, I just want it to be simple, navigable. I want the images to be very clear and a decent size when you click on them. I like thumbnails that you can click on. That's one of my preferences. And then when it comes up, if you mouse over one of mine, you'll get a little explanation about the painting that makes it a little more personal, what made me want to paint it, how I painted it, whatever it might be. Anything that I can do to bring people into a conversation with me. There's one thing I didn't talk about that I probably should have during the talk is take people's advice. Like I had a lot of people early on seeing me struggle with sales. I'm not a salesman, nor do I really want to be. So that's probably why I'm not a good one. But they would try to help me and they'd say, hey, take this course, do this. They'd give me phrases to use and whatever. And in moments of desperation, I would try them, but they were never me and it always backfired, never worked for me. So what I would end up doing is just kind of finding my own way through it. And one of the things that I discovered was my strength was just conversing with people. I like people. I like talking about art to people. I'm very passionate about it. It gets me going. And my passion starts to get them going. And we start feeding off each other. And then eventually they'll buy a painting. So I try to simulate that in my website, which is why I put those little explanations on there so that it becomes a more personal thing. You can look at it and go, oh, that's neat. I get a little behind the scenes featurette from this guy a little bit. And it's the way I approach my YouTube videos, everything. I figured, look, if I'm not good at these things, let's lean into my strength. And my strength is I'm my own chatty Cathy doll. I got the gift of gab and I can make jokes and I like to talk to people. So it ends up working in my favor. So I use those things as my strengths wherever I can. Because I'm not the best businessman coming out of the gate. So I have to use whatever advantage I can get. And so for me, simple is how I treat the website and just make the images the dominant thing and the text big. I try to stay away from small little compact paragraphs. I use big type, make it as clear and easy as it can be for people. Other people have way fancier websites than me. Mine's a little bit out of date at the moment because I am doing a whole update with has the store and everything. So I haven't been paying attention to it for a few months because it takes me a while, even though Squarespace is easy. Nothing's easy for me on that side, but it's much easier than it would be otherwise. But you'll still get the whole experience if you want to check mine out.
Okay. Cool.
And follow me on Instagram if you're interested in t-shirts.
Next question. We got a lot of questions here. So the next question is there a standard commission price for the galleries? I think what they're asking is about the percentage. Or does it depend on each gallery's rules or the years of artist experience?
Yeah, it does on all those things. Usually the standard nowadays is 50%, but it can be as low as 40% commission to the gallery, 60% to the artist, but it can also be high 60% to the gallery, 40% to the artists. I would not go past 50-50 with any gallery I deal with. I would not even entertain a 60-40, no matter how desperate it was or how great that gallery was. It's not fair. The most equitable, I think, is 50. It has to be respected how much their overhead is for sure. So I'm not going to kill anybody over 50-50. I do think 60-40 was better. I miss those days a little bit more. I would say 75% of the galleries are at the 50-50 mark. So you're just going to have to swallow that pill if you want gallery representation. But I would not even look at a gallery that wanted more than 50%. Back in the day, and gets to the second part of your question, back in the day, the galleries used to do a lot more things for you. They would advertise you. They were like a record company. They discovered you, you would paint, and they would do all the other stuff for you. It's not that way anymore. It's very much a partnership. They will not even ship. You'll have to cover shipping to get it to them. You'll have to take shipping to get it back from them if they don't sell it. So they do far less for you than they used to in those regards. So I just don't think the commission is worth more than 50%. If they put you in magazine ads and stuff, they'll still want you to contribute to that. So it's a different game these days. But if you are a bigger artist, you are better known, the commission rate does go down commensurate with your fame. So if I'm hanging there and I can get 20 grand for a 6 foot by 4 foot painting and another guy gets 120 grand for that same thing, he's probably paying 10 to 20% commission compared to me because a lot more famous. So it is a sliding scale depending on how popular you are. But I personally would say don't deal with anybody who wants more than 50. There's enough galleries out there you could find a better deal.
Good advice. Next question is, if a piece of art has been in an exhibition, has an exhibition history before it is sold, like a group show, for example, do you also put that in your documentation grid? That is part of the provenance of that piece of art and relevant, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. You can include all things like that. It's, I mean, for me, I don't, because it's, again, I tailor everything for my ease. And this brain, the form of dyslexia I have is very visual. I have visual interface dyslexia, so I see things in pictures. So the more heavy laced a document is, the worse it is for me. But even though I am that way, I know other artists who don't suffer dyslexia and they're very good business people, and they still only do their provenance in a limited form, just because it makes it easier and it's quicker. But you could be quite comprehensive with your provenance for sure. Listing any exhibition that painting's been in is a good thing to do if you want to do that detail. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. It's just not required. The official points of provenance are the ones that I outlined. Anything over that is gravy. Think of it that way. Like, it's, you got your turkey meal, but now you're into the gravy. And that's good. If you're a person who can do that and it doesn't bug you and you like that, I would say go for it 100%. But for others in the crowd that might be more on my lean, it's not necessary. It's helpful, but not necessary.
Great. Next question. Do you think that being a member of CARFAC is a help to an artist getting into a gallery? Do you know what CARFAC is?
Yeah, I think that any group membership, um, it's not an easy question to answer because it's specific to galleries. Some galleries, like the Fed, let's take another organization that's pretty well known, the Federation of Canadian Artists or the Oil Painters of America, et cetera, et cetera. Any group can be good depending on if that gallery respects that group. But it can actually be hurtful if that gallery doesn't respect that group. And some groups have good relationships with people, and some groups have not had good relationships with people. So I tend to, I've been granted signature status in both the Federation and the Artists for Conservation, and I've let them both lapse because they were equally damaging or helpful depending on who I was talking to. And I found that that wasn't helpful to me. So I've ended up kind of being in a position where I don't pursue groups as a rule. I will associate with groups and say I might do a volunteer thing here, or I might do a special promotions thing there. But I'll try to make sure people understand I'm my own entity, but I work with others. And then I have no specific affiliation. It's, unfortunately, these days, it's kind of gone the way of being, if I can use an American example, the Democrat or Republican. It's become very tribal. It's become very contentious, and it depends on who's with who, and it can be intensely political. So I tend to be a little bit more quiet-mouthed about group associations these days because they've never really helped me. I've never made a painting sale because I was a member of a group. I can tell you that. I've made painting sales because I was with an exhibition or I was with a gallery. I've never sold anything because I was with a group. And I'm a member of a lot of groups, but I don't promote it. I'll take the opportunity to show with them if that opportunity comes up. And that's what they're there for me. If it gives me an exhibition opportunity, that's a decent group. If it doesn't, if it's just a matter of paying dues, my experience with CARFAC hasn't been super positive. I'll say, like, there is very dense group structurally, I would say, without a lot of exhibition potential for the average artist. So that's a group that off the top doesn't appeal to me. I'm better off doing auctions and different things like that, or finding exhibitions that are far more direct to collector. I hope that makes sense.
Totally. And it just depends on what type of artist you are, like what sort of suits you. And you have to figure out where you are sort of in that community.
Exactly. And that's part of the thing is hopefully it's come through in my chat that I am the least thing from a political animal. I don't navigate politics very well. I don't really know how to present myself any other way than how I am. So I'm not cagey. I'm not good at, positioning myself or whatever. So So I keep myself out of the danger zone. Like if I get a small, quick little story that I could say is that I got invited to teach a workshop through the Federation at a Bar U ranch location, and I went there, and one of the signature members were there. You shouldn't even be doing this if you're not a member of the Federation. And I was there literally 5 minutes. I just dropped my bag, and I got hit with that. And I'm like, dude, I don't want anything to do with these kinds of politics. I said, well, that's the way I'm just gonna. I'm on my way to Victoria after this is over to visit my daughter, so I can just go 4 days earlier. I'll just leave now. And the president overheard. He was like, no, 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 no. She shouldn't have said that. That shouldn't. I said, well, this is the kind of thing I don't like being part of. Like, I don't want to be a part of your political thing. I want to teach. You asked me to teach. I'm here to teach. If I got to be a member of something in order to do it, then count me out. And he said, no, no, you don't have to be. And by the end of the weekend, they conferred signature status on because they liked me so much. And it's like, oh my God. See, this is the kind of thing that makes me nuts. Like, I'm not good at this stuff. I just want to be a guy who talks to people about my art. I don't know how to, like, so if you're a person that's smarter than me and able to play that world better, you navigate yourself through that kind of nonsense, then that's an advantage, and you should fly with it, because that can be a great benefit to be able to just maneuver things. I don't have that mind. I'm not a chess guy. This is not my gift. I'm a straightforward, step at a time, not multitasker.
Well, it makes you a very good teacher.
Hopefully, but for certain people, there's other people that wouldn't like my teaching at all. But it's just one of those things where I go, I just got to be who I am. And that's a nice comment, Karen. Thank you. But it is tough. It can be a very political world, and the artists that can handle that are usually better off. So yeah. I will say that much. So don't run from it like I do if you don't need to.
I know we only have a few minutes left. I think I've got 2, maybe 3 questions maximum. So
I can go longer if you guys want. It's up to you.
Well, if we go longer, it'll only be a couple minutes. Okay, so Next question. Is it more valued for your work to be multimedia, or can you choose to focus on your specialized media in terms of successful exhibitions?
Yeah, the second, popularly, most people would say. A guy like me has a hard time promoting to galleries. I often struggle with buyers because they'll go, just last year I'm 22 years into this thing, and I had a buyer say, like, we've been following your work for years. We love the way you paint. We just love everything you do. We're just waiting for you to find your voice, and then we're going to start investing. And I'm like, that's still a thing, hey? Okay. Well, my voice is that I paint whatever I'm into. That's my voice. It's the paint that I'm into. It's growing in that I'm into. So you should start buying now, because it's going to look like this forever. Maybe I'll be abstract in 10 years. I don't know. I'm just going to grow. We'll figure it out. But that thinking comes from galleries and collectors that want to put you in a niche. They want to be able to say, oh, Kat is known for her loose watercolors of mountains. Boom. And that's how they want it to be. It's good and easy for them to make that a sales point, or make it a real concise thing. Or Marianne is known for those tight representational portraits. Boom. They don't want to have to say, well, Doug, he's known for a lot of things, and he also sculpts, and he does, like, he's confusing. I don't know how to classify Doug. You just got to take them piece by piece. They don't want that, and I get that, and I'm fair with that. But I also don't want to be limited in my growth. So I've made my job hard. The way that I would instruct you or advise you to get around that is that I've had success with is I don't present to a gallery my body of work. I present to them a series. I call it a series. I'll say, this is my landscape series. This is my portrait series. This is my historical series. I'll couch it in that. This is my wildlife series. This is my finger up the nose series, like whatever it happens to be. This is what I'm doing today. That's my series. That's what I'm offering you. I will mention to them others, because they'll see it on my website, and they'll say, but if you're ever interested in some of the other things I do, let me know, because I'd be happy to share those with you as well. But I'm really only offering you this because I think this is what would fit for your gallery. Otherwise, I wouldn't be approaching you. And that has given me a little bit more success marketing it. It still makes it tough for the buyers that are trained for you to have a niche, because they can feel betrayed if you do anything outside of what they've already purchased. So I can't really give you advice on making that easier to navigate. The easiest way to navigate it is to push yourself into a niche, but that also restricts you from growing at other areas that you might be interested in. I'm equally activated by abstract as I am realism, so I don't want to restrict myself. I want to see what my expression will become. So I just kind of make the marketing world a lot harder on myself in order to give myself room to grow in those ways.
Yeah. The next question is about reproductions. Do you do glisses?
I have in the past. I found that since the 09-10 crash, that market's really disintegrated. It hasn't produced. In fact, a lot of my friends that solely made the bulk of their income off of prints are making their income off original sales now and rarely selling prints. The Chiclet market itself has gotten pretty beat up because there was so much gimmickry with it, with hand retouched things. I mean, even something simple where they say this is a 30 edition, limited edition print. This print is 18 by 24, but they've got the same image on a 30 by 24, the same image on a 36-24. Well, that's not a 30 edition print. That's now a 90 edition print at different sizes. So there's all these sales gimmickry things that are slightly dishonest that we're putting off buyers, and a lot of the things that were going on in the industry simultaneously to that crash. And it's just kind of killed it. I find that the prints that work now that I do on a very limited basis are paper prints that are unlimited. They're hand signed, but they're unlimited. They're not expensive. They're $20 to $40 depending on the size of the print that I might produce. But I do very few of them. I'm finding a little bit more success with my coffee mugs and T-shirts, but I designed them myself. I loved it. I coached for the poster competition for the Stampede and started doing digital art because most of the kids were coming from the digital world, and I needed to understand where they were coming from in order to get them to successfully produce a traditional painting. And I fall in love with digital as another medium in its own right, and I use it for designing and painting little things that make me giggle. And then I put them on a T-shirt, and I'm finding that to be a little bit more productive than prints ever were. So that's kind of, and I haven't even got my store up yet. This is all just selling sight on hand. They'll see me wearing it at a show and go, I want that. And then I'll set them up and they order it and they pay me, and there you go. And it's been better for me than prints were. So I think that is a little artist dependent as well. I also have like subjects that aren't maybe totally universal. So if you talk to another artist, you might find far more success with prints for them because they're far more universal in what they're producing. So take some of those things with a grain of salt as well.
Okay, last question. Is there a digital program like Excel that you use for your inventory records with photos?
Yes, I use Mac's version of Excel. I can't remember what it's called. Numbers, I think.
Yeah.
It just gives me the spreadsheet I showed you guys. It gives me that. That's the same place. I do my inventory and my record keeping all with the same form. The only thing I add is if it sells, I add the buyer's name, email, and phone number and what it sold for. But otherwise, that form is what I'm using to keep track of everything I produce. I do keep separate photos of my paintings that I'm adding to my website, but that's in separate folders that are just JPEGs or PNGs, whichever it may be. We can do one more question because I see you've got 36 of them.
Well, no, I'm just getting a lot of, it looks like a lot of people, if a discussion of year at the end, please include me. Yeah, it's really just a lot of like thanking you and how informative this was. That's what a lot of this is. And people are like linking your website, your YouTube videos, and I'm so thankful for this talk. So thank you so much, Doug. This has been incredible.
Thank you guys. I'm really, I'm very happy that it was useful. That makes me thrilled. Thank you guys.
Oh, hugely useful. This is the information that artists have such a hard time getting their hands on, and having somebody who's been doing it sort of to come back and sort of tell them how to get through the ropes. You know what I mean? How to do this.
Yeah.
So it's huge. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I'm very honored that you asked me, and I'm glad that it was useful for you folks. That means the world to me. So thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you.
Up
Okay.
with the Patty Cathy doll.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you, Doug, again. And stay tuned. And in the new year, we'll have new talks for everyone to join. So thank you so much, Doug.
You're very welcome. Thanks. Everybody have a good time. If you ever need any advice, contact me and I'll chat with you.
Great. Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
And then I stop sharing screen.
Yeah.
And then I can go by. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Yeah, you're a lovely organization, and I just re-up what I was saying earlier. If there's anything I can do for you down the road, I'm so iron in every fire that I couldn't be a full-time volunteer of any sort, but I will help wherever and however I can. And if you need somebody to do a demo or you want me back for another talk or whatever, you just let me know.
Well, that's awesome. I really, really appreciate that. We might hit you up, so be careful what you offer.
Oh, I'm big fans of whatever we can do to make art work for people and whatever we can do to make art work in our community and expand people's awareness of it and help artists. I mean, wow, helping artists, come on. That gets me right. You had me at helping artists. So yeah, thank you for everything you guys are doing. You're fantastic people.
Oh, thanks. You're the best.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you very much.
Lovely to meet you. Take care. I'm gonna try to sign off, but I guess I'll probably, if you hear me talking an hour from now, you know it didn't work.
No problem. Thank you so much, Doug. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. It was amazing as always. Thank you.
See you, Kat. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks.
Okay, bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that went well.
That was wonderful.
I had to manually remove Doug, just so you guys know, but that was fine.
It's so funny.
Because it's not like it lets him know, so it's good.
Sure, I'm sure he's grateful.
Oh, that was so interesting. I'm sorry I missed the beginning. It was great. Yeah, so practical.